Hello and welcome to Poser TV with your host, The Edge. As you might already know, and that's if you've watched the 4 or 5 videos I've created, I do this little podcast, television cast, whatever, from work. I've been interrupted 3 times now having to answer the phone, and I'm tempted the next time the phone rings just to answer it on cam, and maybe it'll add a humorous element to my content here, because I'm tired of starting over. I want to cover something today that was inspired partly by Christopher L's humorous post on, I think it was called Did You Know? And partly inspired by my own video yesterday on the Nephilim. Guam did a response video to me about the Nephilim and made the point that we, as Christians, take a little small footnote in the Bible, because the Nephilim are just not really covered in detail. But we've created this huge mystery around them in this backstory, and we have all these different theories that are just purely unprovable, all speculative. And I think we do this a lot more than we realize. For instance, let me just tell you a story that I think you have either heard or you're very familiar with. There may be some of you out there that haven't heard it, but to me, this was just one of those stories people knew and know. Once upon a time, God in heaven and all of his angels, archangels, and I guess however they're ranked, all lived together harmoniously. Well, shortly after the creation of one of the archangels, Lucifer, a little bit of trouble started to stir up. You see, Lucifer was the most beautiful creation God had ever created. And partly because of some iniquity of his own, and partly because he was full of himself, knowing that he was the most beautiful creation, Satan, actually he's still Lucifer at the time, got it in his head that he could be and was more powerful than God, and wanted to place himself above God. So he approached several other angels and got an army together. He in fact convinced a third of the angels in heaven to start following him, and this caused a great war in heaven. God allowed this for a while, but not too terribly long. He endowed the Archangel Michael, I believe, with the power to defeat Satan and cast him out of heaven. And so Satan and a third of the angels fell from heaven. It's also presumed, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is really a challenge video more than anything else, it's presumed that the third of the angels that fell with him became demons, and that Lucifer's name changed from Lucifer to Satan. So here's my question to you, and my challenge. How do we know that story? It's not in the Bible. At least not the canonized version I have. Maybe, just maybe, the Apocrypha contains some of the details. I don't know. I sent this email to my former pastor, and he was able to tell me that there is some reference of the story in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, but goes on to say that these passages are really about the kings of Tyre and Babylon. However, the traditional interpretation is that the descriptions are too extravagant for just human beings, so there's probably an intended double meaning, and that these stories might actually be really about the great evil spirit behind them, i.e. Satan. Well, I've looked at these verses, and I see how double meaning is there, but it doesn't contain nearly all of the elements to the story I just told. For instance, it doesn't talk about the third of the angels. It doesn't talk about Lucifer and Michael having battle. I don't even think it really implies that Lucifer was an archangel or even the most beautiful creation. So, again, how do we know this story? And where does it come from? Now, even if some of you can respond to me and give me more biblical references, whether it's in the Apocrypha or just a book of the Bible I missed, I would still ask you, where did we get this story? Because even if it were in the Bible, this is pre-human history. With Adam and Eve in the creation story, it's plausible that we know that story because Adam and Eve were there to experience it, and through oral tradition they could tell their children, and their children could tell their children, and their children could tell their children, until one day someone picked up a pen and actually started recording human history. But no one was probably around. Well, even if, because there's another side of this mystery, when did Lucifer fall? I don't think that part of the mystery is worth solving until we figure out how we even know the story to begin with. But um, even if this story occurred during human history, we do not have access to heaven um, or any of the realms outside of earth. So, did God tell Adam and Eve this story? I'm confused. So I think there's a lot of stories like this that you and I know, where we fill in the gaps, or where maybe someone passed down this tradition orally. Um, but really, I guess this is a challenge to Christians, um, or I guess non-Christians that kind of know their biblical history and various stories and things like that. Give me a response either in video or in commentary. Let me know why and how we know this story. I don't necessarily think it's important whether we know this story or not, or if it's true or provable. It's very interesting, and I tend to believe it. Again, it's been ingrained into my psyche since an early age. I really wish I could remember who first told it to me, whether it was my parents or a Sunday school class, or how I found out about it. But this is a story that I think most people know. So I look forward to your commentary. For now, this is The Edge, signing off.